everyone. So I've done garden tours about every month this year, and I figured since the garden is in the dormancy now for winter that I would give you a tour of what I'm growing inside. So what I'm going to do in today's video is take you around and kind of walk you through all of the different houseplants that I have. And I'm actually on a houseplant no-buy. I think I started it maybe a couple months ago, so I'm going to try not to buy any houseplants at all this winter. That doesn't include propagating, but I think I might make a video separately on kind of why I'm doing that. But for today, I'll walk you through all the different plants that I have growing in my home. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start the tour over here in the living area. I kind of keep my plants close to each other in just two areas of the house. That way it's easier to maintain and care for them. If they were spread out, I'd probably forget about a couple. So this is where the majority of my plants are. We'll start over here. I have this Dieffenbachia, which I really like. The color and variegation of these leaves, I just think they look really cool. I do have a lot that have crispy edges, and I think I asked for recommendations before, and someone said to give it distilled water, so I've been trying to do that to see if it recovers, and I think it looks a little bit better on some of the leaves, so hopefully that will improve the overall look, but it's pretty happy here. Obviously I have my Christmas tree. And then coming over here, this plant is actually a propagation of another plant that I have, and actually this is a propagation, this is all propagation, this is all propagation, and then I have plants over here also propagating. So you really only need a couple plants and then you can turn them into so many more plants. But I love the way this one here is draping down. So this is a philodendron. I don't know the exact variety, but there's no variegation or anything on the leaves. The stand is from an antique store that my aunt picked up and asked if I wanted it, and I said of course. And I just like the way it's draping down here. It's actually hitting the floor, so I'll probably give it a trim and then maybe repot a few to thicken it up a bit in there, but I think this one is really pretty there on the plant stand. Down here in front of the couch, I definitely will thicken this one up, but I have, these were actually both from the Philodendron Brazil main plant that I have, but this strand here didn't put out any variegated leaves. So I just thought that was interesting. This one obviously has, so now it kind of looks like a combo of plants, which I don't particularly mind. Over here in this vase, I have just another philodendron propagating there in water. I do have regular like mason jars and stuff to put propagations in, but I like to put propagations into things that look pretty and kind of use them as decor as well, when I can. Behind the couch is something I'm really happy with that I kind of had an idea for, and we're slowly getting to where I want it to be, but I call this my plant curtain just because I couldn't think of a better name. But it's basically, I have a shelf, and then on the shelf is a white plastic flower box that I just got for a couple dollars, I think, off of Amazon, filled it with soil, and then I've been propagating my philodendron plants and my pothos plants and popping the vines in here. I have given it a trim or two and then put the vines back in. I also have some more vines propagating that I'm going to add to it. But if I come in close here, the end goal will be to completely cover the white box so you can't really see that there's anything on the shelf or even the shelf at all. It'll just be kind of a waterfall of leaves here behind the couch. I think that will be really pretty. Down here, I have one of my very first houseplants that I got. So essentially, I went to a plant store or garden center here in Chicago when I first moved into a place, and I had a room that was going to be my office that had a very small north-facing window. So I asked what plants would kind of do well in that environment. And this snake plant here was one of those plants. I really like the variegation on here. We actually have some with more variegation even than the other leaves, so that's really pretty. This is sitting in another antique store find that I really like, and I think that combination of plant goes really well together. Coming over here, I have what I think is called cordyline. I always forget the name of this plant, but I wanted to find a plant that had some height in this corner and was also a pretty good value, and by that I mean cheap. So I went for the cheapest, tallest plant. I could find. I think this one was $60. I've had it for maybe a little bit over a year. Not sure if it's been that long. This one needs a little bit more water than like some of my other plants. Actually, my snake plant, I water maybe once every 2 to 3 months. The tip they told me for this was to put your finger in the drainage hole and not from the soil on the top. And if the drainage hole soil feels dry, which means essentially the entire container is dry, then water it. So that's what I've been doing. It's worked really well. This one I do water almost weekly. And I do like to keep the leaves on this one clean, but this one I really like as well. Up here you've seen this, but this is my candelabra propagation station. These will be added to the plant curtain I just showed you. And down here I have my aglaonema, which I think the variety is Silver Bay. This I got at the same time I got this, so it was recommended for low light conditions, and this one is just bushed out so much. I really love it. I think this one needs a repot. There's actually a few plants that I'll show you that are in need of a repot as well. But again, the leaves I just think are really pretty. It actually puts out, I think that's going to be a flower. Yeah, it puts out some flowers as well, which you can leave on or you can cut off. I like how they look, so I leave them on until they start to die. And then I think I got the container at the same place I got the plant, but I really love this. So that's kind of a look at this side of the room. I'll show you my string of hearts and then I'll pop over to what's in the grow light. So this table is kind of just the table of things that need sunlight, but doesn't necessarily look like a pretty part of the room, just a gathering of plants. But right now, if you saw my propagation video, this is where all of my string of hearts and the new propagations are sitting. I actually even made a couple more down there. These, I have both the regular kind of green string of hearts and then the variegated string of hearts. Started with 2 plants and here we are. So again, just love to propagate as much as I can. But now I'll take you over and show you what's underneath the grow light. Coming over to the area with my grow light. So the grow light here is from Soltech Solutions. I waited for one of their holiday sales. I think it was Labor Day before I got it. And I don't really use it during the summer because I think we get enough light into this room, but I do definitely use it during the winter for my plants that need more light or prefer more light and don't really like the Chicago winter lighting conditions. So coming close up here, first down here, I just wanted to point out the green foliage is actually fake. That's the leftover foliage from some of the flowers I put on the Christmas tree, but I figured instead of throwing it away, I'll just put it in this container that I was using for when I pick flowers from the garden. And then I have some dried hydrangeas that also didn't make it into the Christmas tree in here. So that's just for decoration. Over here, I have my ruby ficus. This I absolutely love. It's definitely in my top 3 plants, mostly because it has pink on it. This one I did get this year. It's a larger version of the other ficus I have that I'll show you in just a bit, but the leaves on this are just absolutely amazing. I would love to even have some artwork with just the leaves painted on it. So this one right here was in my office, which I'll show you in just a little bit, because we had enough sunlight, but as we're going into winter, it just needs more light under the grow light here. And there's a tiny little bit of new growth popping out right there. So as far as what is on the table, this is my other ruby ficus, so much smaller. I got this one a couple years ago, so it's actually put on quite a bit of growth. Now, if we come in close, you'll see there's some new growth coming out here. I think this whole branch right here is some new growth. So it has put on a lot of height, but nowhere near where this one is. So I'm glad that I have kind of 2 at different growing stages. Another one of my favorite is the Hoya Carrii, which I, for the first year at least that I had it, call it Hoya Carrii. Just didn't even pay attention to the second eye on there. But why I love this so much is because I got it originally as a single heart. And for the most part, when you buy a Hoya Carrii that's only 1 heart, it doesn't necessarily put on new growth. You have to actually have part of the stem and a node to actually produce new growth, and a lot of the single hearts don't have that. But this one, I was very pleasantly surprised when I saw this first heart here on the back start to pop up. It actually has some damage from a heat incident. So basically part of our heating system fell off, and the upstairs area where we had the plants at our last place, it was like 90 degrees blasting heat in there. So this did suffer some heat damage. Some plants actually died completely, but none of my favorite ones, luckily. And then it's put on a bunch of new growth since then. You would have seen a video where I recently just potted this up, and what's been amazing is the amount of growth that's started popping off of the stem since I repotted it. So these two here started growing. I have a slightly larger one right here. There's one up here, and then two more up here. And then also new growth at the top. So that's definitely a sign to me that this plant was ready to be repotted, since it seems to be doing very well since then. In the front here is another candelabra turned planter. This one just has some string of pearls. I actually had a giant string of pearls plant which got infested with, I think it was spider mites, but then somehow also had an ant infestation. So ants had come in from the outside and were living inside of the potted plant. The plant itself had never gone outside, so that was a first for me, but this is basically what I have left that I was able to propagate. So I just threw it in here, and I think it's kind of cool where, to me, it's almost like wax dripping down with the string of pearls, so I really like that. This normally lives in my office in a shelf as well, but needs more light during the winter. And then back here I have my sort of sad looking lavender tree. So this one's been through a lot. It got waterlogged when I was keeping it outside during the summer. So basically it rained a lot. The root system was starting to rot. I brought it inside and I've been trying to recover it. I mean, there's still new growth and green growth, but there's a lot of dead growth in the center. So I'm going to keep it inside, see how it does. It still smells really good. So if it does survive, then I think we'll just plan to keep this inside going forward. But that is everything, at least for now, that is underneath my grow light. We're now in my office, which has a couple trailing plants that I really love. So first, here in this corner, I have a golden pothos, which I think when I first got it, the vines were maybe just below the white pot that it's sitting in. And I've had this for a little bit over 2 years now, and I've definitely given it a few haircuts, so you can see how much it's grown in just a couple of years. Coming in closer, so one of the things I do know about this plant is it's going to need to be repotted soon. Now I think the container it's in, so it's inside a plastic container within this pot. I'm pretty sure I can get a larger pot and still have it fit back in this container. But basically what I need to do is take all of these vines off, repot it, and then put it back up. And I don't think it should be too difficult of a task just because there's not a ton of vines. I mean, they're long, but there's not a ton of them. So I think it should be easy enough to take them down and then put them all back up. But if I do that, I'll take you along with me and see how much of a mess I make. But I really love this because it's trailing along the ceiling here. This one needs to be strung up. Basically, I need to add more hooks to get this trailing along the wall. And then this is also draped around my mirror, which my dad made for me, and he passed away 6 years ago now, so it means a lot to me. But this is just a corner of this room that I really love. Now over on the other side of the room, so it's the same office area, just the other wall, is my other trailing plant. So this one is also a golden pothos. It also has vines that need to be hung up. And I think I've had this for maybe a few months longer than I have the other one. But you can see this one's basically taking over the whole wall here, trailing up over the door. I really love this room, and just that it's absolutely covered in plants. I also think this one's probably going to need a repot relatively soon as well. But coming up closer here, I mean, it still looks pretty full and lush at the top, which I absolutely love. Also on the top shelf here, this is a candelabra I got from an antique store. So again, anything that can hold candles and is at an antique store, I will buy and put plants on it. And in here I have 2 different types of philodendrons, but 3 different containers. So I have this one up here at the top. These 2 were actually the same plant that I just halved and then put them in each of the containers here. And I'll see if I can find a photo, but these were much smaller when I first made this about maybe a year and a half ago, and now it's starting to trail. I actually need to trim some of these as well, but basically I want this whole thing to be covered completely in plants, and it's getting pretty close. Over here I have another philodendron that's just trailing down the side here. I gave this one a trim because I do want to thicken it up more, like how it is at the top, less stringy as it comes down, but overall this one's looking really good. In the shelves themselves, which I need to do just kind of like a whole reorganization of it. I kind of feel like I just throw random things there, but I don't really like the whole cohesive look of it. So I don't know, I'll probably do a video like rearranging my shelves or decorating them. This shelf unit itself is from Bob's Furniture. I think it's called the Jansen shelf. It's really beautiful, but it's a pain in the butt to put together, especially if you're doing it by yourself because of the fact these are not straight across, but they're kind of stair-step shelves. So there's a lot of pieces you have to hold together as you're trying to put it together. But I do love it now that it's set up. So in here I have a Raven ZZ plant. So this is the one where the new growth is green, but as it ages, it turns black. And I really like it here in this black pot. I just got this. This might be my most recent houseplant purchase, and I think it was from Home Depot for like $10. Below it, I have a sweet potato vine that I brought in from the outside and just put it in this decorative container for the winter, and then I'll plan to move it back out into the garden. But I just thought that the dark colored foliage was a nice addition to the indoors since most of what I have is green. And then speaking of, I have another really beautiful philodendron here. This is the philodendron Brazil, I think is the variety. And I love the variegation here of the leaves. It almost looks like the colors are just painted on. This one I've given a few trims to as well. I think I'm probably gonna trim it again. I like to keep it, especially in this shelf, more bushy. So I like the look of it being bushier overall. But that's what's currently on the plant shelf. I typically have more on this shelf, but because we're going into winter, there's not as much light during the day. And the windows over here, which actually lead to the garden, are west facing. So we do get sun for half of the day, but not enough in the winter to keep some of my plants that need more light happy. So those I've moved over, which you've seen, into the grow light area. The last plant, I think, in here is this ZZ plant. So not the Raven, but a regular plant. We have some new growth coming in right there. This is one of the first plants I got as well. I got it because it would work really well in low light. I've repotted it once, maybe twice since I've gotten it, and it's just really expanded in growth quite a bit. I think when I first got it, it was in maybe like I want to say like a 6-inch container, and it just keeps putting out more and more new growth. I actually think this one might need a repot as well again soon. And I'm kind of going back and forth because, you know, they're not really grown in the winter. So should I wait till next spring to disturb them? Or since it's winter and I'm not really doing much else in the garden, which is when I tend to ignore my houseplants, should I repot them now? But I think that is everything. Let me do a double check here, looking around the room. This is kind of what it looks like here with all of my plants, and then hello to the garden. So those are all of my houseplants. I hope you found this video interesting. If you have any questions on the plants that I have, let me know in the comments below. You'll probably see more houseplant videos over the next few months until I begin starting my seeds for the garden next year. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.